Hi, my name is Daudi Mugabi and this is Business Mike episode 18. My guest today is Mark Karamira. He's the founder and CEO of SPAY, Uganda's first of its kind tech-enabled taxi cab service. In this episode, Mark shares the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur and provides some helpful tips from his experience. All this and more next on Business Mike. Thank you, Mark, for joining us today on Business Mike. Could you briefly tell us who you are and what you do?
My name is Mark Andrew Karamira. It's a mouthful. I was the founder and currently the managing director of SPAY Taxi Cab Services Limited.
Could you tell us more about SPAY?
SPAY is an old Ugandan slang word for special hire. So back then when we used special hire taxis or taxi cabs as they're more commonly known now, we used to call it a SPAY. I'm looking for a SPAY. So we thought that would resonate with Ugandans, people who remember the space from back then. SPAY Taxi Cab is, yes, it's a taxi cab business, but we are borderline IT customer care business as well. We are not too much in the business of acquiring cars as taxi cabs, but we are looking more at connecting passengers with available taxi cab drivers. So as it happens right now, there's a sufficient number of taxi cabs out there. Guys who are seated in a parking lot of Game, for example, at Kisimenti, with his feet up, radio on, waiting for a customer. While at the very same time, there is a customer, maybe even 100 meters away, who wants a taxi cab but does not know that that guy is available in the parking lot 100 meters away, and this guy doesn't know there's a customer 100 meters away. So we want to be able to link up the two very easily. So we started out with our own core fleet of cars so that we can, because it's unprecedented in this market, that kind of business. The only precedent is the likes of Uber and Easy Taxi, who are operating in more advanced society. So people are used to that kind of technology. But here, we are used to calling up 3, 4, 5 guys to find if they're available. So we want to just make it easy for people to be able to access a taxi cab in town.
All right, how does it work though? Say, for instance, I'm at your offices here and I want to go somewhere. Does this work in terms of like an app, and a text message, a phone call? How do I get to know there's a cab near me, and how do I get them to take me where I want to go?
So we have sort of made it multi sort of communication system where you can call in right now. That's what's most prevalent, is for people to call in for a taxi. But then you can also send a WhatsApp. You just need to, of course, confirm. When you talk to somebody, it's different from when they just send you a text message, because anything can change in that time. We are completing the website booking, so you'll be able to go on our website and book. So for people who are seated at a restaurant on their laptop or in an office, should be able to book from the comfort of their computer. And then the app will be the last phase. We have sort of come up with a structure, and so the app will come last. It's a value addition. But to answer how it works, it's a simple 3-step process. First, you register on our website, www.spe.ug. Once you've registered, we receive your registration details, your personal details, and then set up for you an account, a SPAY account. Your second step is to activate your account by buying a bundle of kilometers, which are called SPAY miles. So basically it's mileage based, it's subscription based, it's prepaid. So you sign up, you buy a bundle, say 20 kilometers, we bundled our kilometers to avoid a couple of things: exchange of cash with drivers. You do not always have cash on you, but then you have the need to travel. And so to eliminate that inconvenience, you just run down your account, the same way you put airtime on your phone and you keep calling until it gets finished. So step 1 is register, step 2 is activate your account by buying a bundle, and the third step is basically to order for a cab. So it's easy peasy.
No, that's a very good business model, and the reason why I like having people like yourself is to help other people out there who want to start a business understand how it is you move from inception to the actual business. And that brings me to my next question, which is, how did you, well, earlier you told us that there was a problem of cab drivers being idle when there were customers around, and your job was basically to bring them together, create a platform that could merge the two. Now, in terms of proving that this concept would work, in theory it made sense. How do you then move from theory to practicality and validate that the idea actually makes sense?
Okay, so in developed markets like in the US, Silicon Valley and in all these places, they have taken it down to a science of how to take a business from that idea in your head to a past pilot to inception. For us here, basically, it's like animal instinct. When you have an idea, the first thing you're feeling for is a gut feeling. Once you have a gut feeling that something is viable or it feels right, then takes you to the next step, which differentiates, I think, real entrepreneurs from everybody else, which is to then do something about it. Some open their laptop, pull out a notebook, and start to draft a business plan of sorts, put your ideas together, and then it remains there. You just have to get started. There is no shortcut. You just have to get started. And so I had the chance to travel, particularly to Germany, Berlin, where I had a very revealing encounter with taxi cab business. They were extremely efficient. They were never more than 2 minutes or 3 minutes away whenever you called for a taxi. In fact, you couldn't call for a taxi from your hotel room. It was advisable to go down to reception and call it from there, because in the time you get down, you will delay. The taxi cab, they are that efficient. And so I always think to myself, what do these people have over us? Nothing. Nothing. We're all born the same, flesh and bone and blood running through our veins. And so I thought to myself, why can't we have this level of efficiency? Why can't we have a proper functioning taxi system? There are already too many cars in town, and that's because everybody is driving, even when they don't need to. And then they get to the office with an 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 job, and then the car is parked, only to then drive it back home. It means you don't need a car. You just need to get from point A to point B. So I came back and I thought about it, and I put ideas together with some friends, and we decided to start. It's a risk, but that risk is what differentiates, again, a true business person, entrepreneur, from a theoretical person. Because you have to overcome that risk, take it in your stride. I approached a partner who runs a car bond. Well, he became my partner eventually, but I had to go sell him the idea because I didn't have the money to buy the cars. And I told him, look, you have cars seated in this car bond. People are probably paying demurrage. Let's just pull out 3 simple cars and do that proof of concept that you're asking about. And of course, then you have to go through the work of branding, of putting the word out there so that people can actually. And so that's where you have friends and you have these social networks where you tell people this thing is running, please try it out. And before you know it, the word starts to spread. The moment you get started, things just start to happen. And you're not in direct control of those things. The only thing you're in control of is actually starting physically. Everything else just starts to happen. Calls come in, emails come in, people who have had a good experience talk to other people, and before you know it, the thing has picked up and it's moving.
What did you find to be the best method to, once you had your business, in terms of promoting it, to get it out there? Because initially, you don't have the capital to advertise on TV and stuff like that. What was the best and most effective method for you? Was it social media or word of mouth? So
I think still to date, I think even proven by research, is that word of mouth is still the most effective form of marketing, because it's experiential. If I used a service, if I ate a Rolex somewhere and I told somebody you need to try the Rolexes at this place, a person will go and try it. The Rolex guy has not put any money into advertising. He has only put money into making his product nice. That allows me to go talk about it and somebody else will go. So it's really a no-brainer and it almost costs nothing. So word of mouth is still the most effective. The only challenge is how you track. That's where the the lack of efficacy for some people comes in is that they don't know how to track that word of mouth. How many people have actually come because they were told by somebody else? Do you have a reward system for those that actually told, to encourage them, to incentivize them to tell other people, and for new people to also feel that they can tell other people, which is sort of what multi-level marketing does. That's how it works. It's purely word of mouth. They don't stock their items in retail outlets. So when you're starting out a service like this, you need to probably belong to a sort of organized social group or business network, which allows you to meet people regularly and exchange your idea with them. You know, sort of clubs, Rotary investment clubs, you know, groups of friends, a place where you know you have like-minded, serious people whom you meet on a regular basis, and they can watch your product or your service grow, and they can give you feedback. They feel part of the process of improving it as it goes along. You will not pay them a cent, but they will go out there and evangelize. So it's word of mouth is still the most effective. Once that picks up, you can then start to go social media, because at least you know you have your core initial clients, so the clientele, market base, and then you can now reach for the thousands and hundreds of thousands, as long as you have taken care of that initial, yeah.
Your business really reminds me of Uber, a very popular cab service in the US and some bits of Europe.
We have tried to steer away from it, but we can't. we can't fail to look like it. We can't fail to look like yes.
Based on oh, by the way, how long has SPE been in service?
I would say 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, we only started around Feb, but you know, our initial registration and the whole incorporation process, which was fraudulent, we came to discover. So we had to re-register at the end of in April or the end of March. Yeah, well, cost of doing business in Uganda, I guess. So I mean, but yeah, we consider still Feb as our when we really started.
So how do you see, based on the reception you've got with your service, how do you see the traffic or transportation industry, specifically in Uganda, changing? Do you see this becoming something bigger in the future, with more and more people using cabs, and we have less of the taxis, therefore less congestion on the roads?
Wow, Daudi, you've asked a question that has become very dear to me because of this business. You know, the longer you're in a business, every passing day, every passing moment, you're thinking deeper and deeper about your purpose and why you're doing it. And so I'd answer it this way. We look at SPE taxi cab as not just a service for the sort of elite or upper class to use special hires. We feel that we are trying to contribute to the transportation sector in Kampala to start with, in Uganda generally, but in Kampala to start with. And we are contributing in such a way that we think we have part of a solution to ease the congestion and the difficulty of mobility of getting around Kampala. How? We do not, SPE does not plan to keep buying cars, taxi cabs, to put on the road. When we look at the market in Kampala, I think the last estimate said there are about 1 million cars or just over in the country, and 80% of those are in Kampala. So let's look at 800,000 cars in small little Kampala, and growing exponentially, of course. Now, the infrastructure is not growing to increase the threshold of the roads for the new cars that keep coming in. Remember that we have a very young population, 70% under 40 or 35, almost the youngest in the world, and also almost the fastest growing. So in terms of the fertility rate, very high. So we have new young people getting into the system who are looking to acquire a car. So we looked at those 800,000 cars and we're thinking to ourselves, there are already enough cars in the system. How do we use the already existing pool of cars to undertake a transportation business, so that instead of more people buying cars just to be able to get from home to the office and back, all they need to do is use the already existing pool to get around town, wherever they want to go. And so what we are looking at is a partnership with the already existing taxi guys. Since we have the platform that connects passengers to the drivers, the already existing special hire guys who can be put onto our platform so that they are getting more and more volumes of business. Because the technology makes it seamless, it's literally a no-brainer if you can flip your phone open an app and say, I am at Kololo, I'm going to Bugolovi, and somebody responds saying, I am actually a minute away from you. It's seamless, it's a no-brainer, it's convenient. And that's what everybody wants. So we think with the already existing cars, we can get special hire guys on board. We are also looking at partnering with individual car owners. Those people who have office jobs and buy a car to drive it from home to the office and back every day. We are thinking, look, if we dropped you at your office and the car went out and did its work and came back and picked you up from the office and dropped you home and continued to do its work at night, you're getting a return on your investment with the car. But then we do not have individuals clogging up the road during rush hour because they are all going home and they're all leaving the CBD and hitting the suburbs. And you're seeing one person per car. If you're all in Bugolobi flats, there should be a way that you can carpool, come together, get into one car, and all go into the CBD. So if Daudi happens to be the one who has a car, what if the rest of you left your cars home, or maybe just didn't buy cars at all? And then we'll all go in Daudi's car. You pay a fraction, Daudi is getting a return on his car, which never happens, because individuals buy cars and they think that they have some sort of asset. But your car depreciates every day, so it's just losing you money every day. And then you have to fuel it every week and service it and insure it, and the occasional border scratch, and they have nicked your side mirrors. So the car becomes too costly. So I think if we could make it worthwhile for you to actually own the car, but then let that car move around. And so it's a very new out of the box sort of proposition. In a way, people give their cars out for weddings and for that's one day. And really a meager return. You never call it a return on investment on the car. But if it was running around every day and transporting people, so we think we can use the already existing pool of cars to do an efficient taxi business, because there are already more than enough cars to take people around. And that will only complement, of course, the buses and the big buses, and hopefully the trains whenever they actually start moving properly. I hear of plans of getting the rail up and running. So we are only contributing. It's not the solution. It's not the solution to all the problems, but we feel like we can contribute in that way by utilizing the already existing pool and not adding any more cars into the system. And then later, of course, we'll start to go up country and other parts of country. And because I think transportation remains a problem in any city in the world, it makes our business very scalable. So we're looking at Kigali, we're looking at Nairobi, we're looking at the region, basically.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think the future is in sharing cars. And there was a TED talk I was listening to where they talked about, well, they were suggesting a time would come whereby you don't need to buy a car, you just need to rent a car depending on what you want to do. For instance, if you're a corporate guy and you're going for that meeting, you rent a Mercedes-Benz. When you're going home, you jump in one of your cars that gives you a service to go home. If you're going to take the kids to school or play soccer, you rent the van. So basically you don't own a car that you're dumping on the road, you're just renting these services. And it's becoming a part of the shareable community, where you have things like Airbnb, where you just go online, you find a home.
I just signed up on this week.
No, it's brilliant. So I genuinely think that's the future. So I'm really happy for you. I'm glad you're bringing something like that to our society, and I honestly wish you the very, very best.
Thank you.
So I read an article this week that Uganda was voted the most entrepreneurial country in the world, with over 28% of adults being self-employed for the past 3 years. So you're one of those people.
Yeah.
And based on your experience, what advice would you give aspiring entrepreneurs or even existing entrepreneurs?
Aspiring entrepreneurs. I am passionate about spreading the word of entrepreneurship to fellow young people. In fact, I was just talking to some 2 days ago whose parents send them to me to find them jobs, and I had a chat with a young man, very well spoken, very articulate, with good ideas, and I planted that seed in their head and said, you know what, start something. Everybody has a story to tell, everybody has an experience to share, everybody can contribute, can be a change agent for a better world. But there's only one way to find out, is to get started. So to aspiring entrepreneurs, one of the biggest starting points is to answer a big why. What is your why? What's your purpose for doing the business? What do you feel is your calling generally in life? So if you can dig deep, because that is the fuel, that is the core that will keep your engine running, is that why. You go to sleep at night thinking, okay, I accomplished this, and maybe one step closer. You wake up in the morning and you cannot wait to start that day, so that you can continue to try to accomplish your vision, your why, your purpose. So for aspiring people is to start by digging deep and asking yourself, why do I want to do something? Before you then go to the how can I do it. It could be through employment, but it could also be through an entrepreneurial initiative. And now there's social entrepreneurship. People used to think it was just about making money, but with this, it's a sort of new field. But you know, it's a new sort of school of thought, telling people who are undertaking social initiatives that they're also entrepreneurs, in the sense of taking the risk to start something that is sustainable. For existing ones, those ones, as long as they have been in the game for 2 to 3 years, they know that you just have to keep dusting yourself off every time you fall.
Can you give us an example? When did you fall and dust yourself off?
Wow, okay, so when I had just started, when I just got back from university, I started, my first business was a student placement, an education advisory for Malaysia, where I went to university. So I was connecting students from Uganda to go study in Malaysia. People had finished. And so I had this one bad experience with a student who was from Rwanda. And I had a partner at the time, and I left the file. Her file had gotten to a certain stage. You know, we had sent everything to the university had sent a conditional offer, and we were waiting for the rest of the process to come through the Malaysian immigration and the government before. So I left it at that stage, left it with my partner, and traveled on holiday. It was a scheduled family holiday. So when I got back, I was away for maybe 2 weeks. I got back, and it seems my partner was more eager to get the student to go, that he overlooked that she was not Ugandan. Her passport wasn't Ugandan. Though she had studied in Uganda, her passport was Rwandan. Now, at the time, and I think it's still happening, Uganda and Malaysia have very good bilateral relations. So you get a visa on arrival in Malaysia. So that used to help us a lot to expedite Ugandan students. However, for those who are not Ugandan, they had to go through a little extra process and get some extra paperwork back from Malaysia before they could actually arrive in Malaysia as students. So my colleague goes ahead and sends the student, having received only an acceptance letter from the university. She didn't have a visa letter from immigration allowing her. It's like a conditional visa allowing you to arrive, and then they'll take your passport and then process your student visa. So I arrived when she had just traveled, and so she gets there and they cannot let her get into the country because she does not have that document. That means she has to be sent back all the way. You have spent $1,500 on a ticket send your child across the world to a place you've never been. You're relying on these people to do it for you, and all of a sudden your child is a daughter, a girl, is stuck in a foreign country and has to be sent back. It was the most trying time, considering that I think I had only been in the game for maybe a year and a half.
Did you cry?
In hindsight, I think I should have, because the stress, those tears can let a load off your chest. But no, I don't think I had time to cry. Everything, the pressure was so much that we had to coordinate. Of course, her being sort of half in the air, in a foreign country, no telephone. She has stopped at the airport and can't get into to Malaysia. And so they asked her to go back, to come back to Uganda, wait for that document, and then fly back to Malaysia. It was a nightmare. So, and the time difference, Malaysia is 5 hours ahead. So when they were starting their day, it was in the middle of the night here. So I basically wasn't sleeping because I was always on standby for the calls when the business day started in Malaysia, from the university and from the airport, and from my colleague. I had a partner who was based on the ground in Malaysia. So we had to process these students coming back. I confirmed that she was not being deported. She was only being returned until that document was out from the immigration to allow her to go back. And so she comes back through Dubai. Of course, the mother is calling me every day, every hour, wondering where her daughter is. So she lands in Dubai, but because she wasn't a deportee, but she was sort of on a sort of deportee status. So when you're on a deportee status, the cabin crew and pilots hold your passport until they hand you over to the airport officials on the ground, and then they give your passport over to the immigration officials. So that's sort of what was happening with her. And she didn't speak English too well, of course, being Rwandan. So there was a language barrier. Even with her mother here, we had a bit of a language barrier. I understand some Swahili and can speak some, and so that's all the mother could speak. And so when she gets to Dubai, she couldn't get the connecting flight on Emirates to Entebbe because the flight was full, and so she's not priority. So I go to the airport with the mom. We get there. We sit at the airport literally for 3 hours waiting. So Emirates has landed and we're wondering what's happening. Everybody has come out. It is an hour later. Surely there's nobody still left in there. But we thought, you know what? So I made a few phone calls here and there, a few contacts, managed to get information from the people handling the flight manifest and asked them if the student by these names, passport number, because I had all the details, had arrived, and they said no, she hadn't. And so it's like, you know, you hear about the Bermuda Triangle and how things get lost in the middle there. Where is this person? Because she arrived in Dubai and should have been on the next flight to Entebbe on that Emirates. Fortunately, I had a cousin working in Dubai at the time. He had a friend who worked for Emirates ground staff at Dubai International Airport. So I called him and he said, okay, I'm going to talk to my friend. When he goes in for his night shift, he'll check the flights that have come, the Emirates flights that have come from Malaysia. He'll look for her name and for her passport number. So we had to be on standby until they found her. Those were a couple of hours. Now you're with this person's mother and she's saying, where is my child? So eventually he found her in the airport. She was completely stressed and distraught, and she had had a nightmare basically. And so she's stuck in Dubai International Airport. I don't think she had enough money on her, of course. So this, I talked to that gentleman, the Ugandan guy who worked for Emirates, and I asked him to take care of her as well as he could, and to ensure that she got onto the next Emirates flight, which was the next day. So the next day we drove back to the airport with her mother and waited. And just when I thought everything was done, because she had actually landed, they said, now Ugandan immigration says, you know, this person seems to be on a sort of deportee status, and she's not a Ugandan national, in which case we can't let her get into Uganda. She has to go to Rwanda, to her country of origin. Just when we thought everything was done. So anyway, after a lot of negotiating and unfortunately against my core values, bribing, We managed to get her to come into the country, to let her out of the airport. But then they gave us a 24-hour window for her to then leave by road through Katuna to go back to Rwanda, which was okay because the mother is a trader between Congo, Rwanda and Uganda. She's a businesswoman, so she moves all the time. So she's like, anyway, it's a chance to go back home and just forget this for some time and rest. So after all that, I came back from holiday to inherit all of that, having left the student ready to travel, all because of one simple little document that should have been received before the student could go. But yeah, so it taught me a lot about, of course, just the patience and sort of quick thinking. In business, all sorts of situations occur. You have to think on your feet. You have to be able to communicate with people. You have to sharpen your negotiation skills. I mean, I was fresh out of university. I'm a young man, and I'm here negotiating sort of international, you know, it could have, in this day and age, it could have been called human trafficking. You know what's been happening in this? Yeah, so you know, you're negotiating with airport officials, with immigration. You're calling airports in Malaysia. You're calling Dubai. You know, so you have to be able to multitask. You have to be able to have a sort of high degree for any eventuality. You cannot cry. You have to get it solved. You have to get it solved. There's no time to cry. You have to be quick thinking. You have to be able to network. You have to know people. It's through networks that I was able to access the airport and check if she was on the flight that she wasn't on, and to get her out, to help her to get out of the airport when she eventually came. So, man, that was that was my worst experience. I don't think I've had an experience worse than that. She eventually came. The mother called me and told me she actually got like sort of clinical depression from that experience, and so she wasn't well for about maybe 2 weeks. But then eventually, when her documents came back, the right document we're waiting for came out. I sent it to them and told them, look, you're now good to travel legitimately. Of course, there's a loss of that ticket. But she eventually traveled and went to Malaysia and studied and went through and everything and completed. But that one experience, if you don't know how to handle people and handle difficult situations, is make or break, basically. You wake up in the morning thinking, you know what, I'm not doing this business anymore because of that one isolated incident. So it taught me a lot about business partnerships. Choose your partners wisely. Have sort of systems, who does what. There's a wonderful and yet the most simplest quote I've had. Document what you do and do what you document. So it's basically systems and standard operating procedures. Anybody coming, if you employed somebody tomorrow and they inherited that problem, they just need to read a manual and see 1, 2, 3, 4-step process on how to take care of it. So in business, normally we just go day to day and never think to write down the routine and the processes of how things should work and expect that other people should be able to do those things. So those things are in your head. These people are not in your head. Yeah, so you have to be able to document what you do and then stick to it and make it a culture in your business. So there were a lot of lessons in that one little incident. Yeah, but you have to ride that wave, and you wake up the next day and you're ready to send other students. And yeah, based also on how you handle certain situations, it goes on your CV. This girl's mother, you know, she eventually understood that there was an error. I think it helped a little that I was away, so I wasn't directly to blame. But I know I maintained the relationship, maintained communication, didn't point fingers, you know, took blame for it, took responsibility for it, and we maintained a relationship. Every time I think about it, I actually just laugh to myself. And in fact, I severed my business partnership with that partner. And I told him it was because we were friends from high school and through university, and then we started the business together. And I said we would rather preserve our friendship, but only by separating on business terms. Yeah. So I literally had to buy him out of the business, and then I continued to run it on my own. But then we maintained our friendship, and so we're still friends today. But these are things you learn and you keep moving. Yeah.
What about a happy moment? What are the up moments you've had in your career?
I mean, I don't know if I can call it a career yet. I think a career has to start after like 10 years is when you consider it a career. Right now we're still finding our feet. But I've had several. Almost every passing day is a happy moment. When you're in the sort of service industry, especially like when I was doing the Malaysia thing, being able to set young people's careers going, because we did education advisory, sort of your career path, we call it a career path. What is your passion? What are your strengths? And then what do you enjoy? What do you want to go on to do in the future? And so we used to help young, naive students who had just finished high school decide what they wanted to go on to do at university, and then after that to pursue as careers. So helping somebody to make such a critical decision, life decision, parents always came back later when they're very happy. When I saw the students we sent graduate and come back to Uganda, and now you meet them out there on the streets, you feel that you directly had an impact on that person's life. So all those were happy moments. And the parents particularly being very grateful, of course. And we now with SPE, I sort of imparted the culture of being very transparent, because it's best for sustainability. For the long haul, you have to be transparent, you have to be honest. And so we've had situations where a customer dropped, I think, about $300 in the car and didn't even know. And one of my guys found the money 2 days later and called the person up and said, check if you're short $300 because I found it in the car and I think you dropped it. And this customer could not believe that a taxi driver could pick $300 and return it 2-3 days later. And so she called and she said, you know what, I want to come and meet you. I want to come and see your office. I want to come and meet you guys because I have never been in a taxi and dropped anything. Let it be an earring or a pen. And somebody called to return it. Leave alone had cash. So I mean, we have so many of those happy moments, and almost each passing day, as long as you go through it with that same attitude to serve and to be honest and transparent, every day will be a good moment and a happy day.
Well, lastly, if you are the host of this show, if this were your podcast and I was your guest, what is the one question you'd ask me? So
I wanted to ask you, I mean, I talked about the why. This podcast thing is interesting, but why? It's always interesting to find out a person's motivation for starting something. So that's always a good question to ask is why? Why you could do anything? Why did you do this? If you had a job, why did you leave it to start this? So the why is always a good question, just to understand who the person is and what their motivations in life are.
Earlier on during our discussion, you mentioned, what do you call them, socialpreneurs? Something of the sort. This podcast is something along those lines. Prior to starting this podcast, I used to listen to podcasts myself, but I discovered that there was a lot of substance. I would learn so many things that I didn't even learn in school, that people I would meet on the streets wouldn't be able to tell me in such a compressed period of time. And so I wanted to use the platform to impact other people in a way that it had impacted me. More specifically in Africa, because these podcasts were primarily American, but they would have discussions with people like yourself who would share experiences just like you have, and these had profound effects on me. So my mission with this is basically to go and interview as many entrepreneurs as I can, not just in Uganda or Africa, but all over the world. Share their stories, highlight their businesses, show people how it is that they're running their businesses. Today we've learned a very good lesson from you about integrity and how it can reward you in the future. So things like that I want to take from the people I meet and have them recorded on a website whereby people from anywhere can listen to and actually learn and go ahead and start something, because it is by listening to podcasts that I started a podcast. So someone had an impact on me to start this, and now I'm going to have an impact on someone else to do something, and the ripple effect will just go on and on and on and on. So that's my goal, is to number one, highlight people's businesses, hopefully I'll build an audience whereby once you're a guest on my podcast, you're exposed to more and more people, which will build your business, but at the same time, inspire and educate the listeners to learn from your experience. So that for me is the why. And I'm pretty happy. I'm not motivated by money, because it's one of those things, if someone dangled a huge amount of cash in front of me, I'll probably say no thanks. I'm interested in the impact this will have more than the amount of money I'll make. So that's the why for me.
And you can see it says a lot about that. Why is one of the most important things. It says a lot about a person, not only now, their past, where they're coming from, but also a glimpse into where they want to go. And so anybody who listens to your why would decide at that moment that, you know what, I want to support, I want to be part, I want to invest, whatever support I can give. So the why for me is always a very important.
Have you read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why?
I have not yet read it, but I think I got, if I remember correctly, I think I got like a brief online. I downloaded a brief, and it's part of what made me realize how important the why, Start With the Why is. So yes, I think he also has a website, and
he's got a good TED Talk as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm going to look that up. Because I know he almost literally trademarked the why and made it a whole program. So yes, the why is always very, very important.
How can people learn more about SPAY and yourself? Where can we find you on social media or our website?
We are on Twitter, capital S, small p, small e, that's SPAY, _ capital U, small g. So SPAY _ UG, letter case, I think it's called. Our website is spe.ug, not .co.ug, but just .ug, spe.ug. Our Facebook page will be coming up soon. That has to be part of a bigger marketing strategy, because Facebook has a lot of engagement. Twitter, at least it's easy to monitor, on a personal basis. But Facebook has to be a whole strategy to manage that. So our Facebook page will be coming out soon. And then, of course, we're available on call. But all everybody needs to do is to register first. It doesn't cost to register, but then you never know when you might need to get around airports. And actually, another thing I forgot to mention, Daudi, was the more people like you and me who have jobs or companies, or get behind the wheel of our cars to drive, the more we put an actual driver out of a job. So part of our motivation is let everybody do their part. Let the driver drive. You worry about your business or your job. Sit back, relax. You probably have a lot on your mind. Get into the back seat, read a paper, use that time to internalize. You don't need to be behind the wheel. Let that job be handled by somebody who does that. You already have a job anyway. So I think it's also for us it's also an important thing when we look at the bigger why. Is besides helping with traffic flow and congestion, is employment, creating jobs for people who are actually trained drivers to remain behind the wheel, while you, who is an entrepreneur, who is running your version of TED Talks, Daudi Talks, can sit behind and edit your podcasts as you get to wherever you need to go, or respond to a few emails as you go to the airport. And
Well, thanks so much for your time, Mark.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We've learned a lot. I wish you all the best with SPAY.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening to Business Mike today. And if you'd like to listen to more episodes just like this one, simply go to businessmike.com. For all the links and resources mentioned in this particular episode, simply type the name Mark into the search bar to access his show notes page. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, take care.